How's it going, everyone? David from dodmedia. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about getting that iconic shot when you're traveling. I recently went to Iceland on holiday with my wife, and while I was there, one of the shots that I really wanted to get was this plane wreckage on the south coast. Now, it's an iconic shot because you've seen it everywhere on Instagram. Some of the very famous YouTubers, some of the very famous Instagrammers have all taken this shot, and they've all managed to take it where it's completely clear, no tourists, nothing, a little bit like the one I just showed you now. But that is a lie, because that's not at all what that shot actually looks like. This is what this shot actually looks like, and this was the best one I was able to get with the fewest people stepping in front of the plane. Yeah, infested. I mean, you got one guy climbing up on top of the plane, which is stupid, by the way, because that thing's like a tin can. He could have easily gone through there and shredded his legs. And then you've also got people kind of wandering all around it, and it's just not ideal. So today I'm going to show you how you can clear up your photos in Photoshop so that your shots look just like the iconic ones. So if we have a look at these in Lightroom, one of the key elements is knowing what you actually want to do with your shot when you're taking it. I took this knowing full well that I was going to have to cut these people out in Photoshop. I didn't take it thinking, well, maybe it'll work with the tourists. No, it just doesn't. So I knew full well that I was going to have to cut them out. I also knew that that sky was a lot brighter than that foreground. So I exposed for the sky, knowing that Sony cameras, you can push the shadows quite high. You don't have to worry about it being completely buggered when it's underexposed. So I took all of that into account, and this is the shot I got. Now, if you look between the two, obviously you can see where the flaws are in the final product. But it's only knowing that final product that you're able to spot those flaws, that you're able to point a finger to them. For example, these people here. You can kind of see over here in this cloud area that something's not right there. Something's looking a little bit strange. Now, without knowing that those people were there, this could just as easily be rain in the background of that shot. You can see rain coming out of the cloud. I'd believe it. The other thing is this area over here with the mountains. You can see before and after there. I mean, obviously this guy here is blocking that mountain range, so I mean, Photoshop can't just imagine mountains. What it can do is sample other areas and try and make something. And so what it did was it made this kind of extension of this mountain range and covered it in cloud. It looks pretty good. So I'm going to show you how to do that, basically, how to get a realistic looking cutout to get rid of things that you don't want in your shot so that you can get that iconic tourist-free photograph. So let's start off by applying a treatment to this. I actually use my Fashion Thing treatment, which is a preset that is for sale on my store, but I'm going to show you how to do it from scratch. It's not going to be exactly the same, but it's going to be roughly the same. Alright, so we're going to pop up the shadows, we're going to drop those highlights a touch, not too much, we don't want it to look like an HDR photo or a fake HDR photo. We're going to bring the contrast back up again so that it moves those shadows and those highlights more towards the whites and the blacks, which is sort of what it was doing before, except now it's brought more information into the middle, so we see better on the foreground and the cloud isn't quite as bright. Alright, then I'm going to add some vibrance to this. Let's go 30, yeah, that's looking good. And then maybe a touch of saturation with 10. Then I'm going to hit K on the keyboard. It's going to bring up my brush, my adjustment brush here. I'm just going to go for the clarity tool. 33, yeah, that's cool. I'm just going to add a little bit of clarity on this foreground because these stones are going to look really good when you're bringing out those highlights in them. And then a little bit on this cloud area here just to accentuate that. Okay, cool, then hit K again. Let's go to the tone curve. Let's just do a little bit of a vintage tone curve edit on this. Okay, so now that's a little bit dark, so let's just pop that shadow back up a tiny bit, maybe decrease that contrast a touch as well. Cool, cool, cool. Then we're just gonna come into split toning and I'm gonna add 60 in the highlights, and I'll put saturation to 10. I'll go for 230 and saturation 10 as well. And yeah, that's looking pretty good. I think maybe my shadows could do with being a little bit shallower still. So now what we're gonna do is send that to Photoshop using Command or Control E. Now, what you wanna check is your preferences, so edit preferences. and just head along to external editing. Now I just go with the default TIFF format with a color space of ProPhoto RGB, 16-bit, resolution 240. That's been absolutely fine for me. I've never needed anything else than that, to be honest. So you hit Command or Control E and it will send it over to Photoshop. Now, very first step, create a duplicate of your layer. You do that by doing Command or Control J. The reason you want a duplicate is because if you completely screw everything up, you still have that original one to go on. You don't have to go into your history and go all the way up. It's a nice, easy, quick way of doing it. All right, now we start cutting people out. So we're just gonna zoom in. We're gonna start on this guy here. I'm gonna hit J on the keyboard to bring up the patch tool. And I'm just gonna draw around this guy here, like so. Lovely stuff. Now it can be patch tool or you can have L for the lasso tool, it doesn't really matter. What we want to do is have this selection of him, leaving just the feet there. Alright, then come up to edit and go to fill. Make sure content aware is selected with color adaptation. And hit OK. And there you go, he's gone. No, he's not, because his feet are still there. So hit Command or Control D to deselect, then hit S to bring up your stamp tool. Then hold Alt or Option to select where you want to sample from. Now this is important, you need to select something that's roughly in line with that area. You can't select this part here, for example, because that's going in the wrong angle. You want something that follows this line that roughly mimics this texture. So just over here is fine for me. So I'm going to sample there. I'm going to come up here, make sure the opacity is set to 100. And I'm just going to draw over this guy. Sample the sky, and then make your sample smaller, sample from there, and go backwards. And there we go. I mean, that's looking a little bit sharp because it's sampled from a straight area there and a straight area there, so it's not ideal, but you know what? It's not even going to be noticeable for the final thing. People aren't going to say, what's going on there? Something's weird. Okay, then on to the next person. Let's go for this guy. You can see where there's been some serious chromatic aberration on that lens. I was shooting wide open, in fairness. Right, hit J. Again, we're going to circle around him. Here's a pro tip for you. If you ever mess up your circle and you can't be bothered to retrace it, just hold Shift and you'll be able to add to that selection. Like there, that end of that lens cap. And there you go, that's added to that selection. You don't have to remove it and then retrace it. All right, and then Shift backspace again, or go up to edit and fill him in. Bam, done. Now that's not great. I mean, that line there looks a little bit weird, but the sky is good, mostly apart from that line. So what we're gonna do is deselect, bring up our stamp tool again, sample from there, and just trace along. Okay, to about there. And then we're just gonna lasso around this thing and content aware fill, and it's going to actually just create a join for us like that, nice and easy. And now this bit here is looking a little bit ghosty. So again, we're going to take the stamp tool, and really the stamp tool is just insanely powerful. Okay, lovely stuff. And we're going to sample from there and just complete that off. And then the trick to making the stamp tool not look fake is actually to remove any of these duplications of samples of pixels by content aware filling, because it'll create a whole new selection of pixels for you, so it won't look as bad as ghosty. And there you go, if you zoom out, you can't see that there is a guy there. And just repeat this process of selecting people and content aware filling them out. And when it looks bad, just use the stamp tool to fill in a little bit and make it look better. Now there's a few ways you could do it with clothes like this, things that are on the edge, because sometimes if I do this, content aware fill doesn't always work the best on the edges. You see it kind of struggles with the pixels on the edge. So quite often what you end up doing is just having to stamp tool from somewhere close by here, just stamp tool away onto the edge, because it's not going to be as noticeable. Okay, how's that looking? It's not looking too bad. Got a slight weird thing going on in the cloud there, so let's just stamp that into looking a bit more normal. There we go. And then let's just stamp along here to try and get that looking a bit more normal as well. Let's sample from over here. Use combinations of the content fill, so shift backspace or edit fill, and literally just rinse and repeat this process of lasso, fill, stamp, lasso, fill, stamp. Okay, well that's pretty cool. It's made a copy of this thing here that's hanging down. Does that look weird? Kind of weird. You can kind of see that it's an identical clone of it. So instead I'm just gonna hit the stamp tool again, make it a nice and small one this time, and just sample from over here and just run it along to there. And there we go. Picture is tourist free. Now all you need to do is hit Command or Control Shift E to merge all of your layers and hit save. And because it's actually already created that TIFF file, it's not gonna have to resave it as a new thing. It's already there, it's already done. So now you can head back to Lightroom, and there, voila, is your new tourist-free shot. And now if you want to, you can finish treating it, or if it's already finished treating, just export it. I think I might add a touch more clarity on that, because this feels like the kind of shot that can really use that grungy clarity tool. And then a little bit more vibrance to bring the blues out. Now how does that compare to the original? It's not quite as nice as the original. All right. I hope this helps you get those tourist-free shots when you go to an iconic location. Just remember, ignore all the people. The people can be removed in post. Make sure that you don't compromise on your framing, on your position, on your angle, on the subject, on how you want to capture it, because the people can be removed. You can't change the angle, the perspective at which you shot it. You can't get low down to the ground like this if you didn't shoot it low down to the ground. So make sure that you shoot it as you want it to be in the final result, and ignore all the people. The people, you can remove them, because Photoshop is magic. All right. I hope you enjoyed this. Give it a thumbs up if you liked what you saw, and hit that subscribe button to get more videos from me at dodmedia. It's tutorials, it's gear reviews, and it's monthly giveaways. See you in the next video. Cheers.